College dorms. They're meant to be a home away from home, right? A place filled with laughter, cramming for exams, and dreams about the future. But what happens when the sun goes down and the campus grows quiet? For some students, the familiar comfort of their dorm room transforms into something else entirely. The silence becomes heavy. The shadows in the corner of your eyes start to move, and a primal fear finds a place to live, right there with you. Tonight, we are going to step into the hushed hallways and dimly lit rooms where some students discovered they were UN alone. These are the stories that don't make it into the college brochure. Our first story takes us to an old, historic university, to a dormitory that had stood for over a century. The building itself felt like a relic, with long, echoing hallways, flickering fluorescent lights that cast more shadows than light, and a constant, unidentifiable chill in the air. A first-year student, let's call her Sarah, was assigned a single room at the very end of the third-floor corridor. It was a spot most students actively avoided. They'd say it just felt wrong. Colder, quieter, and deeply unsettling. Sarah, however, was just happy to have a room to herself. That happiness didn't last long. On her third night in the dorm, at exactly 2:33 a.m., she was jolted awake by a sound. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on her door. Knock, knock, knock. She got up, looked through the peephole, but the hallway was empty. Thinking it was just a prank from someone on her floor, she went back to bed. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, 2:33 a.m. Same 3 slow knocks. This time, she shouted through the door. "Who is it?" Only silence answered. This went on for a week. Every single night, like clockwork. The pranks in her dorm were usually loud and obvious, but this was different. It was patient. It was unnerving. Frustrated and losing sleep, Sarah decided she'd had enough. One night, she waited by the door, hand on the knob. The moment the third knock landed, she wrenched the door open, ready to confront whoever was tormenting her. But there was no one there. The long, dim hallway was completely deserted. Her heart pounded in her chest. As she was about to close the door, defeated, her eyes drifted downwards. Her blood ran cold. There on the worn linoleum floor were wet footprints, not hers. They were barefoot, and they led from the far end of the hall, straight to her doorway, and stopped right where a person would have been standing just a second ago. The floor wasn't wet anywhere else. There was no storm, no leak. Just those chilling, impossible footprints. After that night, the knocking stopped. Sarah thought, with a surge of relief, that it was finally over. She was wrong. The knocking was replaced by something far worse. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps, pacing back and forth, right outside her door, all through the night. Sometimes the pacing would stop abruptly, and she'd hold her breath, knowing something was standing just on the other side. Then, she started hearing a scratching sound on the wood of her door, like fingernails dragging down the surface. Sleep became a forgotten luxury. She started seeing things in her peripheral vision, dark shapes, darting just out of sight. Then came the whispers. Her own name, spoken softly in the dead of night, seeming to come from the corner of her room where the shadows were deepest. She was spiraling. Her grades plummeted. Her friends grew worried. After 2 sleepless, terror-filled weeks, she couldn't take it anymore. She packed her bags in the middle of the day and moved out, breaking her housing contract and taking the financial hit without a second thought. The room remained empty for a month until a new student was assigned to it. Within a week, he went to the raw, pale and shaken, reporting the exact same thing. 3 slow knocks. Every night at 2:33 a.m. Our next story comes from a modern, concrete block-style boys' dorm. 4 roommates were crammed into one small suite. It was your typical college guy setup. Bunk beds, messy desks, video game consoles and posters taped to the walls. The room was usually filled with the sounds of loud music, shouting during intense gaming sessions, and general chaos. It was a lively, energetic space. One evening, they were all hanging out when a thunderstorm rolled in. Suddenly, with a loud clap of thunder, the power to the entire building went out. The room was plunged into absolute darkness. Their laughter and the game's soundtrack instantly silenced. They fumbled for their phones, turning on the flashlights. In the sudden eerie quiet, they heard it. Breathing. Slow, deep, raspy breathing. And it wasn't coming from any of them. One of the guys, Mark, nervously whispered, "Did you guys hear that?" They all nodded silently in the flickering phone light. The air grew thick and heavy, the kind of oppressive atmosphere you can feel on your skin. Another roommate, trying to be brave, called out, "Hello, who's there?" His voice trembled. No one answered, but the breathing got closer. It seemed to be moving through the small space between their beds. Then, one of the guys on a bottom bunk let out a choked gasp. He shined his phone light on the empty top bunk across from him. The mattress was slowly, visibly compressing, as if a very large, heavy person was sitting down on it. The metal bed frame groaned under the unseen weight. They were all frozen in terror, their phone lights shaking, illuminating the impossible sight. The indentation on the mattress was deep, undeniable. Something invisible was sitting on that bed, just a few feet away from them. For what felt like an eternity, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the strained creaking of the bed and that horrifying, steady breathing. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure on the mattress lifted. The bed frame creaked one last time as the weight was released. The breathing stopped. The oppressive feeling in the room vanished, replaced by a stark, terrifying silence. They spent the rest of the night huddled together, phones on, not daring to sleep. When the sun finally rose and the power came back on, they inspected the room. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. On the wall right next to the bunk bed that had been compressed, there was a dark, greasy handprint. It was high up on the wall, larger than any of their own hands. No one had put it there. They all agreed to request a room change that very morning. The university, after hearing their story and seeing the handprint which maintenance couldn't scrub off, sealed the room. To this day, it remains empty. No one has been allowed to live there since. Our final story is perhaps the most chilling. It takes place in a women's dorm, late one night during finals week. The building was unusually quiet. Most students were either in the library or locked in their rooms studying. A student named Chloe was pulling an all-nighter and decided to take a break and splash some water on her face. She walked down the silent, empty hallway to the communal bathroom. As she got closer, she heard a sound. It was the faint sound of someone crying, a soft, broken sobbing that seemed to echo in the empty hall. Concerned that one of her hallmates was upset, she pushed open the bathroom door, expecting to find someone inside. But the bathroom was empty. The stalls were all open. The room was brightly lit and still. Yet, the crying continued. It seemed to be coming from everywhere. Confused, Chloe walked over to the sinks. She looked at her reflection in the large mirror that spanned the entire wall, and that's when her heart stopped. In the mirror, her own reflection was smiling, a wide, unnatural grin stretching from ear to ear, while in reality, her face was a mask of confusion and growing fear. She stared, unable to process what she was seeing. Her real self stood frozen, but her reflection's smiling face tilted its head slowly, its eyes glinting with a cold, malicious light. Just then, the fluorescent lights above her began to flicker violently, buzzing and strobing, plunging the room into a chaotic dance of light and shadow. The soft sobbing she'd been hearing twisted and warped, transforming into high-pitched manic laughter. It filled the bathroom, bouncing off the tiled walls, coming directly from the mirror, from the smiling face that wore her features. Chloe screamed and stumbled backwards, tripping and scrambling out of the bathroom, not daring to look back. She ran down the hall, burst into a room, and barricaded the door. She never used that bathroom alone again. Others on the floor began to report strange occurrences, two flickering lights, whispers, and the unnerving feeling of being watched from the mirrors. The dorm was never quite the same after that. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying places are the ones we believe to be the safest, that under the surface of everyday life, something older and darker can be waiting. So, the next time you're walking down a quiet dorm hallway at night, and you hear a strange noise or feel a sudden chill, maybe don't dismiss it. You might not be as alone as you think. Thanks so much for watching. If you have your own creepy dorm story, Share it in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unsettling tales. Stay safe out there.